A very good evening, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, Patricia and David. And this is the start of the long weekend, which if you were in a car, you'd probably be going stop and go north and south from Auckland at the moment. Usual story on a long weekend. And it has been like that since mid-afternoon. So just as well you're out there in the ocean or at a nice peaceful anchorage. The wind has dropped, so that is a little bit of good news for those boats that are heading north from Auckland on the Coastal Classic to the Bay of Islands. Still not very pleasant, of course, with it being on the nose, but at the moment we've got between 5 and 10 knots from the north, and it's 20 degrees. It's really nice to have this northerly breeze for the temperature, but the bar is 1017.2 dropping. And we've got a warm front and a cold front on our way tomorrow, so it's not going to be all that pleasant, but anyway, it's moving through, and no doubt we're sharing our cold front with all you folk north of us. 30% cloud cover here at the moment, so it has been a pretty reasonable day. And a couple of boats, it looks like, according to David, a pretty good time to leave tomorrow. So I know Coho is leaving Lanakai for Opua, and Cambria is leaving for Bundaberg, both of them in Vanuatu actually. So let's have a look at the boats that have just sent in emails, mostly around 4 o'clock. In no particular order actually, but I'm going to start from, we'll start from the bottom. This time, Moonfish is breathing down the necks of Opua. 33 degrees 176 and 17418 east on a course of 152 magnetic, 9.5 knots, so they'll be looking very much forward to getting onto terra firma. They've only got 12 to 15 knots of northerly at the moment, so with a bit of luck they will get in before the stronger winds later tomorrow afternoon. 1 metre swell and 20% cloud cover, nice and sunny and warm. The good news about a northerly, isn't it? So that's Moonfish. Let's see who's next behind. Gracia's doing pretty well, Dave and Andy. 4 o'clock position was 2944 south, 17424 east, and a very pleasant 13 to 17 knots of wind from the northeast, up and down a bit. 25% cloud cover and 1.5 metre east swell, so doing pretty well. Course is 170 true at 6 knots, so it's still pretty reasonable, and that swell is down from what they've had. It's easterly swell. Okay, who's next? Oh, my Taiki. Oh no, Elka. Elka is at 2808, 17503 east, about 6 knots, and I didn't write their course down. 12 to 15 northeast to north-northeast, 1 to 2 metre swell, 70% cloud cover, and they noted that the water is a lot cooler than it was in Fiji. Camelot at 2113 south, that's Dan and Cat, 17601 east on a course of 186 true, 6 knots motoring, 7 to 9 knots of east-southeast, 80% cloud, and they seem to be heading for a shallow trough line. This was about 4 p.m. Seas are calm to moderate, 1 to 1.5 metre, up a bit every now and again, east-southeast, and 10-second period. But they had a bit of an experience of that frontal system at midnight. Of course, all these things happen at midnight, don't they? The wind veered from the north to near 40 knots of wind for a bit. They hit 9.5 knot boat speed, which will certainly have them arriving without any slime on the boat. Yeah, there's nothing like having to reef everything at dark 30, is it? Just when you're thinking of having one watch is going to dreaming of a nice warm quiet bed, and then the next one gets to deal with it as well. Okay, who's next on the list? Did I talk about I haven't. I missed out on my Taiki, should I say, Clive and Jody. 26 degrees 59 17517, and heading south at 9.1. Wow, 15 knots of east-northeast, a lovely sunny day, flat seas, no current. Wow, really a day to remember. So that sounds good. I think we've only had one day on passage like that. I remember coming from Tonga one time and we actually barbecued on the back of the boat, whizzing along and flat seas, and you remember those sorts of things. Well, mind you, I suppose you remember the bad passages as well. Okay, Dash, where are we? Did I start with Dash? I think I started with Dash, didn't I? Well, maybe I didn't. 3010 south, this has just come in. 17513 east, 160 true, 6 knots, 12 knots of nor-northeast, 1 metre confused seas from the northeast, 40% cloud cover, and only 347 miles to go to Marsden. So they'll probably be there on Labour Day. Poor old Customs will have to work on Labour Day, but that's what the name is for, isn't it? Yeah, they get paid for it. Okay, let's see what the propagation is like tonight. Master plan, Gulf Harbour. Wow, good, very good signal. Dean, go ahead.
Good afternoon to you, Patricia. Yeah, we are still heading south, and all is well on board. Our position 27 degrees 32 south, 173 degrees 30 east. Our course at the moment 190 true. Our speed 6 knots. The wind here is northeast at 15 knots. The swell probably east northeast at 1.5, and we've had a blue sky day. Hardly a cloud to be seen. Barometer reads 1016. Over.
Wow, what nice conditions. And yeah, bar here is not that much different. 2732 south, 17330 east, on a course of 190 at 6 knots, northeast 15, a swell of east northeast 1.5, so pushing you along. Blue sky all day, 1016. Well, I tell you what, that sounds as if you'd come back next year. Over.
Yeah, it's been a great day, Patricia. Yeah, very good. And really easy on the boat and on the cruise. Over.
Yeah, very pleasant. So I hope that frontal system doesn't put a spanner in the works, but that's a really nice day to remember. Okay, we'll clear with master plan, just going along quite peacefully there, and see what Lisa's got to report from Obsession.
Afternoon, Patricia. Obsession here. Do you copy over?
Yeah, very nice conditions tonight, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, like the stunning days here, one of those that you remember. We are presently at 2623 south, 17312 east. We're doing about 5 knots on a course of about 170 degrees magnetic. Our conditions are 10 to 12 knots east-northeast, 30% cloud cover, a northeast swell of 1 metre, residual east swell of 1 to 1.5 metres, and our barometer is 1017. Over.
Well, that's interesting. Ours is 1017 as well. Obsession 2623 south, 17312 east, on a magnetic course 170 at 5 knots. 10 to 12 east northeast with 30% cloud cover. Another lovely day. Bit of swell from northeast, 1 metre, and 1 to 1.5 from the east, but still in a good direction. 1017. So another really pleasant day. Over.
Yeah, it has. It's been great. So if they could organise another one for tomorrow, that'd be fantastic. Over.
Yeah, don't hold your breath on that one, but it doesn't look as bad as it was going to be. So we'll wait and see what he says. Okay, have a good night, you and Lester. Okay, going across to the those approaching Australia. No, sorry, I keep saying that's Australia, but it's first of all going to New Caledonia. Falado, Gulf Harbour. Yeah, I forgot to check. They may actually be in. Looking at that today's report. So I'll just check that on the AIS when David is talking. Let's go to Iron Maiden, Gulf Harbour.
Gulf Harbour, this is Iron Maiden. Got a really clear copy today. Over.
Yeah, it's a really, really good day for radio work. Go ahead, Margaret. We missed you yesterday.
Yes, hi, Patricia. We're at 27 degrees 36 minutes south, 171 degrees 12 minutes east, on a course of 160 degrees true. We currently have an average speed of 6.5 knots with an east-northeasterly of 13 knots. We finally got down to 1 metre swell, so she's quite calm tonight, which is great. And what's wrong with her? 1011 and all's well on board. And 90% cloud cover. Over.
Wow, what a nice day everywhere. Makes me envious actually, because it's been a bit breezy here. 2736 south, 17112 east, 6.5 knots on a course of 160 true, east northeast 13 with 1 metre seas down. That's really pleasant. 1011 and all is well aboard Iron Maiden. So reasonable progress there. So all is going well, Margaret. And really good copy from you. I think it's the best copy we've had. It's a really good night for radio. Over.
Yes, it has been a really good copy, and we've been able to hear everyone clearly. So just listening on the phone. Over.
Roger that. Okay, going up to a boat from Tonga, Ruffian, Gulf Harbour.
Gulf Harbour, this is Ruffian. We haven't had such a glorious day as a boat further east than us, further west than us. We are at 2456 south, 17930 west. Wind is about 11 knots from 070. Our boat speed is 5 knots on a course of 200. The sea is about 6 feet with a southeast fall, about 9 seconds or longer. We are sailing wing on wing. It's very rolly and noisy. We have 100% cloud cover and the occasional rainy squall to 20 knots. How copy? Over.
Well, I just think you're very brave with the squally conditions going wing on wing. That's going to keep the helmsman busy. 2456 south, 17930 west, 5 knots on a course of 200 true. The wind is about 11 knots from 070 and 6 feet of southeast 9-second swell. 100% cloud cover, and they have a bit of squally, rainy on and off, but they are wing on wing. I always think it's rather good watching the boat wing on wing, but you'll certainly have to be on your toes. Over.
Yeah, it's normally our favourite point to sail wing on wing. We've got twin headsails and 2 poles, and it's normally very, very nice, but it's just not quite enough wind. But the helmsman, he doesn't need to think too much because we have a wind pilot and he's managing very well. So the person on watch just needs to read a good book. Over.
Well, I don't know what your helmsman nickname is, but obviously doing a pretty good job, especially with the head sails both having poles. That sounds good. Yeah, we only ever had 1 pole. So I'll see what David's going to talk about with the wind. You're going to have a look at the wind?
It makes it safer.
Yeah, it makes it safer. It does make it safer. So hopefully they'll get a bit more wind tomorrow. Okay, Shona and Ian, good, very nice copy from you tonight. And David's going to talk about the weather tomorrow shortly anyway. So we're clear with you. Alula, Gulf Harbour.
Gulf Harbour, this is Alula. How copy?
Ooh, very good copy from you, Jimmy, and hi to Gemma. Go ahead.
Oh, good afternoon. Our position is 19 degrees 55 south, 176 degrees 28 east.
course is 200 true at a speed of 6.8 knots average. The wind is not about 15 knots from the southeast with a swell of 1.5 from the southeast, but quite nice. Cloud cover is quite thin, but 100%. And the bar is 1002. Over.
Okay, Alula, who left yesterday, 1955 south, 17628 east, 6.8 speed at 200 degrees true, southeast wind 15 and 1.5 metre southeast swell, 100%, so not too famous for the day, but 1002 on the bar. Are you going to Opua or Marsden? Over.
We will be going to Opua. If the weather provides, we will change and go to Marsden. Over.
Roger that. Okay, we'll leave that flexible. All right, very good copy from the radio too, by the way. Okay, I'm going to see if I can find Falado, Gulf Harbour. Got you, Ian. Go ahead. Sorry, Jan. It's Cameron. God, my brain's not working well tonight. Go ahead, anyway.
Okay, we're not in yet. We're expecting in tomorrow afternoon well in tomorrow afternoon at this time. So it won't be flying tomorrow. But today we are at 22 degrees 04 minutes south, 167 degrees 54 minutes east. Our auto helm is gearing up, so we're mentally steering now. We're just under motor. We have 14 knots of wind from 055 degrees. And swell is about 1 metre on the southeast, or east-southeast. We're steering a course over ground to 50 at 5.5 knots. Over.
Could you just repeat your course at the moment? Over.
Course is 250. Over.
Okay, yeah, I always compare it with what the AIS is, and it was a bit different. 2204 south, 16754 east, 5.5 knots on a course of 250 true, 14 knots from, we'll call it northeast, and 1 metre southeast swell, and you're needing to steer manually. What a pain, but you haven't got far to go until you get to somewhere where you might be able to do something about it before the next trip. Over.
Yep, correct. We'll be looking to get it repaired in the area. Over.
Yep, roger that. Well, there's good spots there. Okay, nice signal from you guys too. Boy, tonight has been fantastic on the radio. All right, we'll clear with Falado approaching Noumea and in tomorrow afternoon. And Kazoo, if you're listening, I'm just a bit puzzled at what your wind speed might be because you're in a funny little spot there on the AIS. And if you are listening, it would be good to get clarification of what the wind speed, and it looks like northeast, but it's yes, the models disagree. Kazoo, are you listening? No, nothing heard. All right, final one on my list is Zumax, Gulf Harbour.
It's like your week.
Gulf Harbour, this is Zumax. How do you copy?
I've got reasonable copy on you, Anna. Go ahead.
So, our position is 05 degrees 19 north, 126 degrees 16 west. We are on a course of 080 degrees at a speed of 7.5 knots. We have about 2.5
Okay, we have Zumax 05 degrees 19 north, 126 degrees 16 west, 080 true course, 7.5 knots. So yeah, David was looking at all the swell and where the originating swell is for Windy this morning, and you're really puzzling. Anyway, 2.5 meters is the swell, and the wind is 20 to 22 from the south-southeast. So pretty good progress, and not too bad a direction. Over.
Yes, we're finally getting to the point where we can start heading straight to Panama, hopefully. And so that's good. We still have some current pushing us a bit to the north, but I think we will be getting to the end of this part. And so yeah, it's good frequency over.
Yeah, no, it's going well for you, so that sounds good. And the swell's pretty decent, mind you, but I guess it is, I presume, from the southeast, so it's in a not too bad a direction. And lovely copy from you, actually. It's settled down into really good copy from you, Anna. So have a good night, you and Paolo, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Is there anybody else on Passage wanting to check in before I pass the microphone? David is going to give a bit of an update on what's happening at the moment, but also look ahead to see what the future passages are looking like from the various points of origin. So is there anybody else at this stage? Moonfish, yeah, I have you there, Sasha. I can sort of work out, and I've got your position. Is there anything else? What is your ETA? ETA Opua, over. Did you get that? No, you're going to just have to give that again. It's still not very clear. So I'm looking for the ETA tomorrow. Over. No, I'm afraid we'll just have to wait to see it come through on the Garmin. It's really difficult. But David, and I'm sure you've got, with all your comms on board, you will have the time of the wind, and I'll just pass the microphone, I think, because that would make life easier. Here's David, folks.
All right, good evening, afternoon, wherever it is, where you are. And, Patricia wanted me to give you some ideas for the future passages. And this is a rather difficult thing to do, but what I chose to look at was actually right at the moment. I'm trying to get a feel for what the current sequence of events is at this time. Now, this is something I've done in the past, and now with the advent of people using routers, it's sort of a waste of time, actually. But anyhow, what I decided to do was to look at things as they exist at the moment. So I started off by looking at the prime meridian, and I'm looking for highs, the center of highs, and it just so happens that at this point there is a high that's pretty much over the prime meridian. Now bear in mind that all of our weather systems go west to east. All of you know this, I'm sure, but I'm just stating it as a premise to what we're talking about doing here. And the next high that I'm looking at is at about 050 east. This is a high that's just about entering the Indian Ocean. And then the next high is about 100 east, 100 east. and that is just a little bit west of Perth, not quite at Perth yet, but thereabouts. And the next high that I see is around 150 east, and that's a little bit past the Bight, the Australian Bight. And the next and last one that I'm looking at is just a little bit past French Polynesia at about 155 west. Now, the interesting thing is that all of these highs appear to be about 50 degrees apart. So that's multiply 50 times 60, and that's your distance between those highs. And if you look at a high at movement of, or rather, I should say, difference between them is 50 degrees, you can get a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. Now, in between each one of these highs, you're going to have a trough. And if you don't have a trough, you're going to have a depression, and with that depression, you're going to have a cold front, probably a warm front and a cold front. Just depends on what the conditions of the atmosphere are. So that is basically how you would determine when you think you should leave on your passage. And of course, everything depends on how where you are and where you're going, how far away the actual passage is. In other words, if you were in New Caledonia going to New Zealand, that's a heck of a lot shorter than if you were in the upper part of Fiji and coming down to New Zealand. So it all depends on the distance. Now, highs typically move at about 21 knots. I've spent a lot of time over the last few years looking at highs and their speeds, and everything depends on the size of the high and the upper levels, what the upper levels are doing. And I'm not going to bore you with all of that sort of thing, because I found out that all of the times I've talked about upper levels, I really haven't met anybody that looks at upper levels. In other words, 500 millibar or 850 or 700. And of course, all of that is important if you are running models, and you're not. So anyway, it's merely of interest to people that really want to know what the weather is doing. So anyway, if you realize that as a high is nearing your position, you're going to have winds that are basically a southerly quadrant type of a wind. And I think you could visualize the anticyclonic flow of a high. And then picture the high as it's moving basically east. So on the western side of the high, as it's passing you, you are going to get winds behind you if you're coming from, say, Fiji to New Zealand. And this is going to be pretty nice, but the only problem is that you've got the next high is going to be approaching, and those two are going to clash, and that's where we have our trough. And that, of course, is going to give you inclement weather. And if your arrival, your ETA, happens to coincide with all of this, then you are going to have some nasty weather, possible nasty weather, when you get to your destination. So that's really not what Patricia was looking for, I don't think. But what I have taken a further look at is the next group of people that are still up in the islands. What should they do if they are not using a router? Well, the idea is that this weekend is a possible chance to depart from your various points of origin to New Zealand. This weekend does not look bad at all. One of our yachts, Cambria, has been, as an example, I'm giving you here, Camry has been wanting to leave from Vanuatu to Bundaberg for probably about a week now, and we've been discussing this on emails, and he's delayed the trip time and time again for various reasons. However, it does look that Saturday, tomorrow, is a pretty reasonable day to leave. We've communicated this to Camry, and they in fact are going, according to the latest email that I saw. So anyway, that is good news, and that all became a function of just studying the wind patterns and how long that passage is going to take, and so forth and so on. So Saturday looks good, and it also looks good for Vanuatu yachts to head to New Zealand. Now, one of the hardest things to do in Vanuatu is to get south of the island chain. Typically, you've got southeasterly winds, the typical trade winds that we have up in that area, or virtually in all of the tropics areas where we are cruising this season, in most seasons. Southeast wind, trade winds. Well, when it comes to Vanuatu, they're usually more south than southeast, or they're south-southeast. And of course, the angle of the islands, I don't know who designed this, somebody upstairs designed the islands, but the islands are not basically north-south, they're at an angle. So that means if you've got southeast winds, you basically have got a headwind all the way. Well, it so happens that this weekend looks pretty good for making the move from Vanuatu. And once you get down past Inishim, then you've got the flexibility of altering course where necessary, whether you go east of Norfolk Island or whatever you choose to do, depending upon your boat's ability. So that's basically Vanuatu, and really the same thing for New Caledonia if you happen to be in New Caledonia. Now, furthermore, those folks in Fiji may be in luck as well. Their run to New Zealand, starting this weekend, looks pretty good from what I could see. In fact, we might call this the lucky tropical weekend because the way the winds are looking for the next 4 or 5 days, maybe even 6 days. Then with regard to the Tonga boats, leaving Saturday or Sunday will at least get you to Minerva Reef, and that is a good opportunity at this point, mainly because there is a frontal band that's going to be arriving in the Minerva area around Thursday. So if you left Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, you would get to Minerva before Thursday, which would be the advent of the frontal band. And then once that band passes, then leaving Minerva by, say, late Friday, or maybe that's the 1st, I believe, or Saturday the 2nd, you should have a pretty good run to New Zealand at that point in time. Now, let's take a look at the forecast of the Bay of Islands forecast.
Is this for tomorrow? Because I need to make an announcement.
This is for tomorrow, and Patricia has to make an announcement. Oh, there is a missing boat. I'm going to give this to Patricia first, and then we'll go on to this forecast.
Yeah, I just thought, seeing as people would be listening to the weather, that this would be a good time to do it. The RCC are, in fact, looking for a catamaran. It's called Bare Bones. It's a single-hander on board, and Bare Bones is a good name because it's pure white all over, not very big, with an Australian flag, and the single-hander Bob Norson actually departed Vavau on the 12th of September, bound for Opua with an ETA of October the 20th. Now that indicates to me that he was going to Minerva, but as you know, we've had some pretty shocking weather. the RCC would really like to know any information or any sightings of that boat subsequent to the 12th of September. So if you have seen Bob on his bare bones catamaran, either in Minerva or somewhere in southern Tonga or anywhere, could you please get hold of the RCC, or in fact just email us here at ghradio@extra.co.nz. But the RCC, I'm sure you've all got that listed in your books, but it would be very useful for them to know about it. rcc@maritimenewzealand.gov.nz. But anyway, if in doubt, please come at the end of this broadcast with any information, or send us an email at ghradio@extra.co.nz. Back to the weather for tomorrow.
Okay, well, I hope somebody knows something about this yacht. We hate to hear this sort of thing. We have a very good relationship with RCC, and when they raise the alarm, it's not good. Okay, the forecast for the Bay of Islands for tomorrow, for Saturday, and this is from the Met Service forecast. Northerly winds 20 knots, 20 knots, rising to 25 knots, that's 25 knots, gusting 35 knots, that's 35 knots in the morning. Easing to northwest 20 knots in the evening, and westerly 15 knots overnight. Expect possible gusts to 55 knots, that's 5 knots, with squalls. Sea becoming rough in the morning tomorrow and easing in the evening. Waves may rise rapidly during the squalls. Poor visibility and rain with heavy falls in the morning. Possible squally thunderstorms in the afternoon, and the northeast swell rises to 1.5 meters. Now for Sunday and Monday, for those yachts that are arriving then, winds westerly 15 knots, showers developing on Sunday with a northerly swell of 2 meters, easing late Sunday. And Tuesday, if you happen to be coming in on Tuesday, northwest winds 10 knots, rising to 20 knots early in the morning on Tuesday. And that's as far as they go. So it's going to be pretty sporty coming in on Saturday, as we forecast a number of times over the last week. And that is pretty much everything to do with forecasts, other than to say that yachts that are unable or not willing to leave this weekend, just take note of what we talked about in the beginning, the sequence of the highs that are traveling west to east. Take note of them, study them use your models, but probably more importantly, use the synoptic charts that you get from Met Service. You either use Fiji Met Service, or you can use the New Zealand Met Service, which I recommend that you do. Now, again, the highs are traveling pretty much west to east. What I didn't say earlier is that they also rotate as they're moving west to east. So typically they're not a round circle like a ball. Usually they're some odd sort of a shape. And that shape, that odd shape, if you will, sometimes involves an elongated shape, if you will. Picture a squashed ball, if you will. And that squash is basically a ridge. And that ridge will actually rotate. So that makes a very big difference on what your winds are going to do, because now you're dealing with this high that's going west to east, but it's also rotating while it's doing that. So if you follow the winds, which happen to follow basically the isobars, there is an angle to it, but for all intents and purposes, if you're looking at it quickly, you can see pretty much what the direction of the winds are going to be. So you look for that ridge rotating, and it will give you an idea of how the winds are going to change as that high is moving east. And bear in mind that between the highs, you're definitely going to have a trough of some sort. If you think about it, it's simple to understand. You have basically a high that has just left you. The winds are coming from the north. The atmospheric air is going to be quite warm and moist. On the other hand, the high that's oncoming, winds are coming from the south. That air is going to be cooler. There's not going to be as much moisture in it. So you've got two air masses, and they're different. And when two air masses clash, you are going to have convective activity, and that's how a trough is formed. So that's what happens. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your patterns and so forth. And what else could I tell you that would be of some use? We are very strong on ETAs for this passage, whether it be from Tonga, whether it be Vanuatu, whether it be Fiji, or Minerva. Yeah, particularly Minerva. Last year, I think we had how many boats?
No, it was a year. It doesn't matter.
May have been the year before that. It doesn't matter, but we'll at times have a gaggle of boats in Minerva. So the point is, the ETA is important because you want to know what your weather is going to be on arrival. Too many people we've seen look at the departure weather. They look at how nice it is and how pleasant it is, and usually it is. People really don't like to leave when it's nasty, and you can't blame them. We don't, that's for sure. But knowing the arrival weather will make life much easier for you if you have the idea of what you're in store for. So that is pretty much all I've got to say. And with that, I'll give it back to the chief.
Okay, nothing much has come through tonight on streaming, so everyone's got a bit more wind now, so they're certainly going, and it's good that it's in the right direction, so that's going to be helpful, particularly for boats like Moonfish who are coming in tomorrow. All right, I'm just going to repeat the call for the catamaran. If anybody knows anything or has sighted bare bones with single-hander Bob Norson on board, it's a totally white, smallish catamaran, Australian flag. Any time after the 12th of September when he left Vavau, could you get in touch either with us or direct to the RCC? And I was a bit quick giving you their email. You probably have it, but it's RCC, that's short for Rescue Coordination Centre, of course. It's RCCNZ1, the digit 1, at Maritime NZ, all run together, maritimenz.govt.nz. Now, before I hand the microphone back to David, he wanted it back again, is there anybody on air that can give any information about that vessel? Please call now. Well, that's a shame, never mind. If you do think about it and have a chat in the crew and think about when you might have seen Bob, then please get in touch. Here's David again.
Yep, one thing I forgot when I talked about ETA. We have a couple of papers that are out in our website, and we talk about how long it takes from one point to another point. For example, how long it takes to get from Tonga to New Zealand. And we give a basically a list of speeds, whether you're doing 5 knots, 5.5, 6, 6.5, how many days it takes at those speeds. And the idea that we have tried to teach people over the last 15 or more years we're doing this, is that once you pick an ETA, maintain that boat speed. You have an engine, usually. Try to maintain that boat speed so that you can meet your ETA. And the whole idea is to avoid bad weather on arrival. It does not mean dilly-dallying on the passage. We have said this I don't know how many times till we're hoarse, but you don't want to do that on this passage to New Zealand. It is not a trivial passage, and too often we have had to deal with RCC for boats that have gotten into severe trouble because they just really weren't thinking about what they were doing heading to New Zealand. So that's the reason for the ETA. That's the reason for maintaining a boat speed, whether it be adding sail or starting the engine. And that's why it's important to maintain that ETA. And that's all I'm going to say on that. And back to the chief.
Oh, he's in a grumpy mood tonight. Yes, you are. Okay. All right. Is there anybody with anything before we shut her down? I do hope that somebody has seen the bare bones, and if so, that would be great news. Anybody with anything before we shut her down?
So, Harbour, you're talking to Harbour?
Yeah, I do, Lisa. Go ahead.
We were just wondering if Dave, I know he gave us one of the Man Island, but does he have an update to what he's expecting to happen about 28 to 30 degrees latitude tomorrow with the sun and timing of it?
Okay, so you're looking tomorrow. I just missed the last comment. You're looking tomorrow at what it will be like between 28 and 30 degrees on the passage. Is that correct, Lisa?
Affirmative, just tested on his thoughts,
Okay, I shall get him to. He had actually put his computer off, but hang on. 28 to 30.
And what's
On about the
longitude?
longitude for them all is about well, she says 170. It's about 175, I guess. True. Is that about 175, 176? Would that be about right, Lisa?
Yeah, we're aiming at 170, so yeah, over.
Yeah, you always give magnetic, so it takes a bit of brain power to add the 18 degrees. Stand by.
I just want the position tomorrow, that's all.
Well, she's at 26 and 173 magnetic, 173 at the moment, so she wants 28 to 30.
At 173.
Yeah, give or take.
Okay, just a minute. You can think of something else to talk
Yeah,
about.
he's thinking about it. Yep.
Oh,
Actually, the weather here is improving a bit. The boats that are heading north at the moment, well, it's not all that great, but it's given the direction of travel. But the Coastal Classic at least won't have any disasters like they had last year when they had pretty sporty weather, and in fact somebody was killed. But yeah, it'll be quite peaceful heading up tonight, tacking away. But yeah, not much other news. While I've got David here, we talked with someone from California earlier on. It is going to be a real problem with the voting in America. There's all sorts of rumours going around, probably help with hackers, about things that are happening, voting being changed and all that sort of stuff. And it is still very close in the swing states, so it's going to be, and there's a lot of voting has started in many states now with mail-in votes and the like, so the world is sort of holding its breath on the position of America subsequent to the election, which is not very far away. Anyway, I'm going to pass the microphone now for David looking at that 28 to 30 on the passage route.
Okay, I'm using lunchtime tomorrow, and from what I could see, northerly winds about 15 to 20 knots, 15 to 20 knots. You're actually between between a front and a trough. You're in between them, so your cloud conditions should probably only be about 40%. So that's kind of interesting. You're basically split the difference between these two bands. So that's not too bad at all. You are to the east of the main axis of the cold front. So it's actually looking pretty good for tomorrow at that time. I'll just look at a different time and hang on 1 minute. Well, I'm looking at the morning breakfast time, virtually the same thing, and we'll take a look at, say about 8 p.m. About 8 p.m. On Saturday, give or take an hour or so. The winds will come out of the northwest, about I would say 12 to 18 knots. Not very strong, 12 to 18 out of the northwest. And this is about 8 or 9 p.m. Over.
David, we very much appreciate it. It's just, interesting to know what your thoughts were on when it was going over. So thank you, over.
Yeah, roger that. Sounds not too bad, does it? Okay, and good news from the RCC, because that boat has now arrived in Australian waters. And I suspect what happened was because of that nasty low that it was almost impossible to get to New Zealand with it, that he, like several other boats, peeled off to the west and is now in Australian waters, so he has made contact. So you can cancel everything I requested earlier on. That was pretty quick, wasn't it? All right, cheers everybody. This is a Gulf Harbour Radio. We're clear, and if anyone wants the frequency, it's all yours.
Thank you.
Mackay,